You weren't loved. You were studied, mirrored, and then slowly dismantled. Every weakness was noted, every insecurity stored, every boundary tested until it bent, then broke. And the whole time you thought it was your fault. You thought they just misunderstood you. So you explained, you softened, you forgave again and again and again until there was almost nothing left of you to offer. Let's call it what it was. Not love, not friendship, not leadership. Predation. You were never seen, only used. You weren't in a relationship, you were in a performance. They cast you in the role of caretaker, healer, cheerleader, backup plan. And you played it because they told you that made you special, then punished you for not doing it perfectly. They didn't just lie to you, they trained you to lie to yourself. That your anger was overreacting, that your sadness was manipulative, that your confusion was crazy, that your need for respect was selfish, that your silence was guilt, that your strength was intimidating. They didn't need to destroy your life. They just needed to make sure you doubted your own perception of it. And you did. That was the real win for them. This video is not about revenge. It's not about finally telling them off. You already tried that, and they twisted against you. This is about clarity, exit, and absolute emotional dominance. Because here's the Stoic truth. You don't need to defeat a narcissist. You just need to stop being their fuel. They want noise. You give them silence. They want access. You give them distance. They want your reaction. You give them nothing. Not because you're broken, but because you're done. If this hit you in the chest, like this video, share it and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Drop your line in the sand in the comments below, your moment of awakening, your final message, or the words you wish you'd said when you realized the person in front of you wasn't loving you. They were feeding off you. This isn't healing. This is escape velocity. This is the kill switch to the cycle. You don't fix a narcissist. You don't expose them. You outgrow them. Because nothing hurts a narcissist more than being met with indifference from the one they thought they'd broken. And when you walk away without a word, not shattered, not angry, just you don't just leave them behind. You make yourself unreachable. Number 1. A narcissist doesn't want you. They want their reflection in you. A narcissist doesn't fall in love with you. They fall in love with the version of themselves they see reflected back when you admire, praise, or orbit around them. You're not a person in their world. You're a mirror. The moment you stop reflecting the image they crave, adoring, validating, staying quiet when they shine and bleeding when they demand, it's over. Not the relationship, their illusion. And that's when the mask slips. Stoic philosopher Hierocles once taught that we should treat others with layered circles of concern, starting from self-awareness and extending outward with empathy, but always returning to reason. A narcissist operates in reverse. They collapse every circle inward, folding the entire world into a single obsession: themselves. And the tool they use to maintain that obsession? You, specifically, your reactions, your loyalty, and your willingness to bend. Psychology confirms this. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, as outlined in the DSM-5, is marked by a grandiose sense of self, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. But beneath that inflated surface is a fragile identity, an ego so hollow it must constantly be filled from outside. That's where you come in. You were never chosen because of your uniqueness. You were chosen because you mirrored well. Let's look at this in practice. Laura, 38, lives in Denver and works in healthcare. She met Mark, charming, magnetic, confident, almost too confident. Early on, he praised her constantly. "You're brilliant. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. You get me." It felt intense, fast, and oddly intoxicating. But 6 months in, things shifted. Suddenly, her accomplishments were downplayed. If she disagreed with him, he'd accuse her of being unsupportive. If she needed space, he'd call her cold. The praise turned into pressure. And anytime she stepped out of the role, questioning his choices, prioritizing herself, he collapsed into sulking silence or exploded in blame. Laura wasn't being loved. She was being used as a projection screen. As long as she mirrored what Mark wanted to see, a man in control, admired, exceptional, everything was fine. But the moment her reflection got blurry, the rage surfaced. Because narcissists don't just want validation. They require it to exist. Without it, they feel like they're disappearing. This is not about ego in the everyday sense. It's identity dependency. The narcissist's sense of self isn't rooted internally. It's a house of mirrors, constantly requiring others to reflect the right image, or else the whole thing collapses. Here's the Stoic layer. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Why is that relevant? Because the narcissist's greatest tool is your reaction. They cannot survive without your emotional participation. Your defensiveness, your explanations, your need to be understood. These are gold. When you mirror back their hurt, their superiority, or their story of being wronged, you're feeding the image. The minute you stop, when your face turns from mirror to stone, they panic. So how do you apply this? Step 1. Shift from reflection to observation. Narcissists are not confused, they are calculated. They test how far you'll go, how much you'll give, how deeply you'll internalize their story. Stop playing the mirror. Start documenting reality. Privately, calmly, clearly. Keep a journal. Record not how you feel, but what they do. When you stop being a mirror, you start being a witness. That changes everything. Step 2. Withhold emotional fuel. Don't explain, defend, justify, or react when they bait you. Give short, clear responses. I see. Understood. That doesn't work for me. These phrases are mirror-cracking tools. They offer no validation, no hook, no energy. At first, they'll escalate because the image is fading. Stay calm. Let the silence be your strength. Step 3. Rebuild internal reference points. Narcissists train you to see yourself through their lens. Break that. Start small. What do you believe about your worth? What matters to you outside of their approval? Who were you before they arrived? Who do you want to be once they're gone? Write it down. Daily. This isn't feel-good fluff, it's psychological CPR. In neuroscience, there's something called mirroring neurons, cells that fire when we observe another's behavior, allowing us to empathize and connect. Narcissists exploit this. They mimic emotion, mimic pain, mimic vulnerability, not to bond, but to bind, to hook you emotionally and hold you hostage. When you begin to recognize the mimicry, you break the spell. One daily tip: practice 24 hours of zero reflection. No explaining, no defending, no reacting to guilt, praise, or provocation. Treat their words like a TV playing in the background. You hear it, but you don't respond to it. Notice how quickly their control begins to fray when they can't find their reflection in your face. This isn't about being cold. It's about being free. You are not a mirror. You are not a stage. You are not the fuel for someone else's self-worship. Once you understand that a narcissist doesn't need love, but reflection, you stop being a victim of their emptiness. You stop playing the part. And when the mirror goes dark, they don't just lose interest. They lose their illusion of control. And that's how you begin to walk away. Not with a bang, not with a fight, but with silence, clarity, and zero reflection. Number 2, they control you with sugar and silence. A narcissist doesn't need chains. They use rewards and withdrawal, praise and punishment, seduction and starvation. One day, they drench you in compliments so intoxicating you feel chosen by fate. The next, they vanish into silence so cold you start wondering if you ever mattered at all. This is not confusion. It's conditioning. It's emotional addiction, designed with precision. Think of it like this. Imagine someone feeding you sugar cubes every time you sit still. You get used to it, start anticipating it. Then suddenly, they stop. No explanation, just a stare, or worse, nothing at all. And now, without realizing, you're trying harder. Sitting straighter, staying quieter, hoping to earn back what was freely given yesterday. That's the trap. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, the same system that makes slot machines addictive. Not knowing when the reward will come makes your brain obsess over it. In relationships, it creates a loop where you're constantly adjusting your behavior to chase approval or avoid emotional frostbite. Here's the kicker. When a narcissist praises you, it's not about you. It's about control. You're amazing really means you're being useful to my image right now. But the moment you step out of line, disagree, ask for something real, say no, the sugar stops and the silence begins. Let's bring this down to earth. Jason, 42, is a high school teacher in Atlanta. He dated someone who seemed perfect, charismatic, attentive, generous. At first, she flooded him with admiration. You're brilliant. No one gets me like you. I've never felt this safe. But anytime he had needs of his own, coldness, distance, a sudden disappearance, no calls for days. Then, just when he was ready to walk, bam, I miss you so much. I was just overwhelmed. Let's start fresh. The high came back. Jason stayed. This cycle repeated until he couldn't tell the difference between love and survival. The Stoics warned about this. Seneca wrote, "A man is enslaved to whatever he cannot part with, that is not in his control." If you rely on praise to feel secure or fear silence like punishment, you're not in a relationship. You're in a cage with velvet walls. So what do? Step 1, devalue the sugar. When the compliments come, receive them with neutrality. Thank you. Nothing more. Don't let your nervous system light up like it just won the lottery. The less you feed off their praise, the less they own your peace. Step 2, redefine silence. Their withdrawal is not evidence that you failed, it's a tactic to pull you back. Flip it. Use their silence to reconnect with yourself. Journal. Walk. Call a friend who knows your worth without needing to perform. Make the silence yours, not theirs. Step 3, track the pattern. On a piece of paper or your phone, keep a log. Compliment, behavior. Withdrawal, behavior. After just a few weeks, the rhythm will be undeniable. That clarity is your weapon. Narcissistic control thrives in confusion. Patterns kill confusion. One metaphor to remember: you are not a dog trained by treats and timeout. You're a human being with value that doesn't rise and fall based on how loud or quiet someone is today. When you stop reacting to the sugar or the silence, they lose the only real grip they had: your nervous system. And once they lose that, they lose you. Number 3, you can't win with logic because they're not playing that game. You bring facts, they bring distortion. You bring calm reasoning, they bring emotional landmines. You lay out your thoughts like a map, clear, honest, rational. They flip the table and ask why you're attacking them. Sound familiar? That's not miscommunication. That's strategy. Arguing with a narcissist is like trying to play chess with someone who flips the board every time they're about to lose and then claims they've won. You think you're in a conversation. You're not. You're in a power play disguised as a dialogue. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius warned, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." But what happens when the other person fears calm? When clarity threatens them? When truth isn't the goal? Only dominance? Let's break this down. A narcissist doesn't care about being right. They care about being on top. If being right helps them feel powerful, they'll use it. But if twisting the truth, rewriting history, or gaslighting you into confusion gives them more control, they'll do that instead. To them, winning means maintaining the upper hand, not reaching understanding. Take Paul, 46, a small business owner in New Jersey. His brother Jake constantly undermines him at family dinners and group chats in subtle jabs that look harmless to outsiders. One day, Paul decides to finally confront him, calmly, respectfully. He lays out examples, keeps his tone measured. Jake listens, nods, and then says, "Wow, I didn't know you were so sensitive. You've really changed." Within minutes, the conversation shifts from Jake's behavior to Paul's emotional instability. It ends with Paul defending his own sanity. Again, why? Because Jake wasn't listening to understand. He was waiting to redirect. When Paul brought logic, Jake brought misdirection. It's not an argument, it's bait. Here's the psychological core. Narcissists experience disagreement as a threat to identity, not just ego, identity. Disagreeing with them feels to them like you're challenging their right to exist as superior. That's why they deflect, accuse, and spiral. To keep the upper hand, to avoid feeling vulnerable, not to reach resolution. So how do you respond? Step 1, stop seeking resolution. You're not going to clear the air. That's not what they want. You think if you just explain it better, they'll understand. They won't. You're pouring truth into a vessel that leaks by design. Step 2, exit the courtroom. Narcissists thrive when they make you the defendant. Prove you're not selfish. Explain why you didn't mean to hurt me. Don't fall for it. Say less. Let their accusations float in silence. You don't owe defense to distortion. Step 3, use the gray rock method. When conversations turn theatrical, become uninteresting. Neutral tone, brief responses, no hooks. That's your opinion. Noted. I don't see it that way. These are verbal shutdown codes. They don't reward the narcissist's need for escalation. And above all, remember this analogy. Trying to reason with a narcissist is like debating a magician while they're still performing the trick. They're not trying to help you understand. They're trying to misdirect your focus, distract your logic, and keep the attention on their hands. The more you engage, the deeper you fall into the illusion. But when you step back, when you refuse to clap, argue, or explain, the curtain drops. The trick fails. The show ends. And you walk away, not confused, not defeated. But finally, number 4, stop trying to fix them. It only proves they still matter. You've tried, haven't you? You've explained, reasoned, waited. You've written texts you never sent, and long ones you regret sending. You've cried in rooms they never saw, and smiled in rooms they didn't deserve to be in. You've believed that if you just found the right words, showed the right patience, gave the right love, they would change. But they didn't, they won't. And here's the hardest part to admit. Deep down, you knew that. Narcissists don't change because they don't see a problem. Not in themselves anyway. The problem is always someone else. You were too sensitive, too demanding, too distant, too much. And then, suddenly, not enough. You went from being the best thing that ever happened to them to the reason they're unhappy without warning or explanation. And yet you stayed. You tried again. Why? Because the idea of helping someone transform feels noble. But with a narcissist, helping is just code for feeding their story. Every time you try to reach them, to understand them, to bring out the good in them, what you're really doing is confirming their central belief. They are the sun, and you're another planet trying to stay in orbit. This is not healing, it's gravity, and it's killing you. Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that it is better to become wise late than never. But wisdom begins with this: you cannot fix someone who thrives on being broken. A narcissist's power comes from your hope. Your hope that if you just love harder, they'll soften. That if you hold space, they'll walk into it. But they don't want healing. They want attention. Healing would make you equal. Attention keeps them elevated. Let's look at someone living this in real time. Monica, 36, from Portland. She spent 4 years in a relationship with a man who, at his best, was brilliant and captivating, and at his worst, emotionally cruel. Every time he lashed out, he'd come back the next day with half an apology and full blame. You know, I only act that way because I care so much. She believed him. She saw the potential. She read the psychology books, watched the videos, tried to regulate the relationship. She thought, if I stay steady enough, he'll stabilize. He never did. In the end, it wasn't the cruelty that broke her. It was the realization that she had spent 4 years trying to save someone who wasn't drowning. He was dragging her down for control. So what do? Step 1. Withdraw the effort. Don't confront, don't coach, don't compose one last email that says everything. Say nothing, not out of weakness, but out of finality. The absence of your effort is the beginning of your freedom. Step 2. Recognize the pattern. Write down every time you tried to fix things. What triggered it? What was the result? You'll see it. The cycle. Begging, appeasing, hoping, breaking, and still nothing changed. The data doesn't lie. They just made you forget how to read it. Step 3. Reclaim your energy. Take all the time you spent managing them and use it to rebuild you. Join a class. Start journaling. Go somewhere they never wanted to go. Not because it'll make them notice, but because it'll make you remember who you are without them. The Stoics weren't cold. They were clear. To love wisely is to love reality. And the reality is, they will not change because what they are works for them. You were the one hurting. You were the one trying. You were the one adjusting, bending, breaking, apologizing, surviving. They weren't. Here's the metaphor. Imagine pouring water into a cracked vase. You don't blame the water for not staying. You stop pouring, you get a different vessel. You rebuild the well. You stop trying to fix what was designed to leak. Because every time you try to fix a narcissist, you're not proving your love. You're proving they still control your focus. And when you finally stop, that's not abandonment. That's awakening. Number 5, stop playing the healer. You're not their cure. You're their host. If you've ever tried to love a narcissist into healing, let's get something straight. You weren't being noble. You were being used. You thought you were the exception. That if you just stayed long enough, held them gently enough, forgave hard enough, they'd break open and finally get it. You thought their cruelty was a cry for help. That behind the coldness, the blame, the arrogance, there was a hurt child just waiting for someone like you to love them right. You didn't walk into a relationship. You walked into a psychological battlefield with a red cross on your chest, thinking your compassion was bulletproof. It wasn't. And it's not your fault that you believe the story. Narcissists are master storytellers. They'll give you glimpses of pain, flashes of vulnerability, breadcrumb trails of tragedy. It's bait. The moment you take it, they cast you, the healer, the one who understands them, the one who's not like the rest, the one who stays no matter what. That role comes with one reward: slow emotional erosion disguised as purpose. Let's say it plainly. You are not their rehab. You are not their therapist. You are not their redemption arc. You are not their second chance at love. And they are not your sacred project. The philosopher Epictetus warned, you become what you give your attention to. And when all your attention goes to managing someone else's chaos, you become a manager of dysfunction, not a partner in life. You lose yourself, piece by piece, thought by thought, until the only thing left is a tired version of you constantly running emotional triage. Let's look at someone who tried. Kyle, 40, a Navy veteran from Arizona, met someone magnetic, fiery, full of trauma and charm. She'd say things like, "Everyone leaves me, and you're the only one who gets me." Kyle saw the wounds and stepped in like a soldier, loyal, disciplined, committed to helping her feel safe. But every time he gave more, she demanded more. Every calm conversation turned into an accusation. Every boundary became betrayal. And every time he almost left, she dropped just enough vulnerability to keep him invested. Kyle wasn't in love. He was in a hostage dynamic, wrapped in a savior complex. That's the lie. If I leave, they'll fall apart. But the truth is, they were falling apart long before you got there. You didn't cause it. You can't stop it. You weren't sent to rescue them. You were sent to remember yourself. So how do you stop? Step 1. Reject the narrative. When they say, "I need you," translate that as, "I need someone to carry the weight of my dysfunction." Don't be flattered. Be alarmed. Step 2. Reclaim your energy. You don't need to prove you're a good person by staying. Your worth isn't tied to your ability to endure pain. Go where your peace feels natural, not where your presence is used as medication. Step 3. Write the exit script. Literally, one paragraph, not for them, for you. A letter that says, "I am not your cure. I am not your mirror. I am not responsible for the wounds you refuse to face. I'm leaving not because I'm cold, but because I finally remember I'm alive." Here's the metaphor. Imagine running into a burning building to save someone. And once inside, realizing they set the fire. And they keep setting it, again and again, every time you try to leave. That's what it's like to heal a narcissist. You weren't rescuing them. You were fueling the fire. You didn't come into this world to be a crutch. You didn't survive your own hell just to carry someone else's refusal to heal. You're not heartless for walking away. You're finally sane. Number 6. A narcissist will test your boundaries 1 inch at a time until you forget you had any. They never crash through your limits all at once. That's too obvious, too risky. Instead, they push gently, charmingly, just a little, just enough. One half joke at your expense. One moment of, "I didn't mean it like that." One small invasion of your time, your space, your peace, and you let it go because it's not that serious, right? That's the first signature. Narcissists are not loud trespassers. They are quiet surveyors. They take emotional measurements of your tolerance. What will you tolerate if they dress it as sarcasm? If they wrap it in charm? If they backtrack just enough for you to second-guess yourself? They inch forward, and if you don't flinch, they take another inch. By the time you notice, your boundaries are scattered like broken fences, and they're living rent-free in land you used to call yourself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote, "A man is not hurt by what happens, but by his opinion of what happens." Narcissists manipulate that opinion. They don't just cross the line, they make you doubt the line ever existed. That's the brilliance of their cruelty. It doesn't feel like a violation. It feels like your fault for not being more understanding. Take Erica, 34, a real estate agent in Miami. Her partner, James, started small, borrowing her car without asking, making offhand jokes about her weight, replying slowly to messages, and then blaming her for being too needy. Every time she spoke up, he'd say, "You're overthinking again," or, "Why are you always looking for problems?" Over time, she stopped bringing things up. She started adjusting her expectations, not because she didn't notice the disrespect, but because she'd been trained to believe she was the problem for noticing. That's how boundary erosion works. It doesn't start with betrayal, it starts with doubt. Here's the psychological layer. Narcissists use a tactic called incremental desensitization. It's a classic manipulation move. Shift the baseline of what's acceptable so slowly that the target adjusts without protest. What used to be offensive becomes normal. What used to be abnormal becomes daily routine. You adapt and they advance. So how do you fight back? Step 1. Identify the micro violations. Write down anything that made you feel off or small, but that you excused. Even the smallest ones. That's where the pattern lives. Step 2. Stop using empathy as a shield. Your compassion isn't supposed to be a weapon used against you. Don't soften your boundaries because they had a hard day. That's the bait. Step 3. Make silence a sentence. When a narcissist crosses the line, stop explaining. They know what they did. They're waiting to see if you'll flinch. Don't argue. Don't repeat yourself. Don't teach. Just act. Remove access. Change the tone. Walk away mid-conversation if needed. Boundaries are only real if they cost something when crossed. Here's the metaphor. Imagine a wolf circling your campfire. Each night, it edges closer, one paw step at a time. If you don't throw a rock, raise your voice, or stand your ground, one day, you'll wake up with its breath on your neck, wondering when it got that close. Answer: the first night you stayed quiet. Every time you let it slide, you sign a silent contract. The terms: you stay quiet. They stay in control, forever. Break that contract. Your no doesn't need explanation, your boundary doesn't need apology, and your peace doesn't need permission. Conclusion: you don't win by fighting a narcissist, you win by refusing the role. If you've made it this far, you're already seeing it. The game, the manipulation, the slow erosion of your self-trust, disguised as love or loyalty. The praise that turned into pressure, the silence that turned into punishment. The illusion of partnership that was all along a one-person show, and you weren't the star. You were the stage. You've been applauded when obedient, shamed when questioning, and discarded the moment your reflection stopped flattering the lead. That's not love. That's theater. And the longer you stay in the role, the more you lose the plot of your own life. But not anymore. You're done being the healer, the mirror, the emotional sponge. You're done offering explanations like peace treaties to someone who declared war the moment you set a boundary. You're done playing therapist to a person who weaponizes every word you say. You're done pretending that understanding them is noble, when in reality, it's just another way of being controlled. And here's the best part. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need to prove anything. Your exit, done in silence and total self-possession, is the punishment. Because narcissists don't fear confrontation, they crave it. What they truly fear is your indifference, your lack of reaction, your complete and irreversible clarity. This was just the beginning. Because this topic, how to truly outsmart a narcissist, not through war but through psychological sovereignty, is bigger than one video. We've only scratched the surface. In part 2, we go deeper into their patterns, their panic, their dependency on chaos, and your secret weapon, stoic detachment paired with ruthless self-respect. There are new insights ahead, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. If this message struck a nerve, if it cracked open something you've been afraid to name, like this video, share it with someone who needs the mirror broken, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This isn't just a philosophy channel. This is where people come to remember they were never weak, they were just taught to tolerate too much. Drop your story in the comments, or drop your commandment. That one sentence you live by now that the illusion is gone. Your voice here matters, not as validation, but as evidence. Evidence that clarity is louder than drama, and that walking away can be the most articulate thing you ever do. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, but most of all, thank you for surviving. We're just getting started.